Well, hello and welcome to the Brian Hornback 30. Yes, this is episode 58. 58. And this is formerly the Brian Hornback podcast, but it's now the Brian Hornback 30. Here's the reason that I'm calling it the Brian Hornback 30. Podcast was too generic, and I'm going to keep everything to 30 minutes or less. So it's the Brian Hornback 30. So, this evening, January 31st of 2022, Governor Bill Lee announced his State of the State address. That's what it was. It was the State of the State address. If you go to brianhornback.com, you'll find the link to his actual speech, and you'll also find a link to a one-pager that is his. It's an overview of his fiscal year 23 proposed budget. Fiscal year 23, that starts July 1 of 2020 and runs through June 30th of 2023. That's why it's called the fiscal year 23 budget. Just some quick things. Here's what you can find on that link. You'll also find a photograph of this on brianhornback.com as well. But anyway, where each tax dollar goes, 41 cents of every dollar goes to education, 24 cents goes to health and social services, 9 cents goes to law, safety, and corrections, 8 cents goes to general government, 7 cents goes to transportation, 5 cents then goes to our cities and counties, 4 cents goes to resources and regulation, and then 2 cents goes to business and economic development. That's where if this $52.6 billion budget is passed, that's where every tax dollar will go. New allocations. He's going to spend $8.085 billion in new allocations. $1 billion is going to K-12 education and continuing CTE. And that's a 13%. That's $1 billion. That's 13% of the $8.085 billion in new allocations. $1 billion of that's going to K-12. $1.9 billion is going to higher education and CTE, career technical education. $545 million, or 7% of that, is going to health and social services. $602 million, or 7%, is going to law and safety. $627 million, or 8% of the new money, is going to transportation and infrastructure. $922 million is going into the rainy day fund and debt and liability reductions. $1.6 billion is going into capital improvements, and then $795 million is going into what we call the other category. So, some things that where that $1 billion in K-12 education is going. They're committing to crafting an updated K-12 education funding formula. Now, we have a 30-year BEP, Basic Education Program funding, that a lot of folks have complained about. A lot of folks in Shelby County, Davidson County, Knox County have complained about it. Even when I was on the school board 20 years ago, we complained about it because we have some of the more expensive and issues than, say, the rural areas, and we have more students than the rural areas. But then the rural areas say, we're not getting as much money as the other, so the BEP funding has been more, there's been more money per student going to the rural districts because the larger municipalities, the larger school systems are doing more things. They're putting in more programs than the rural areas, and so that's costing more, okay? Because the idea was a basic education program, okay? Well, Knox County, Davidson County, Shelby County, the larger districts they've been doing more than the basic education. So the idea was the state was going to pay a basic education. That's the way it was created 30 years ago. But, obviously that system is somewhat flawed. But $1 billion in new funds are great. But what are the strings that are going to be attached to that? One thing he said today, I'm getting off script a little bit. I don't operate off the script. I'm operating off the press release notes that the governor's staff sent out. But one of the things that he said was that they're going to pay for each student and pay more for those students that have issues, disabilities, special needs, and that's all well and fine. I mean, in some of the rural areas, the dollars break down to about $7,000 per student. In Knox County, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, $4,000, $4,500, or last time I looked at those numbers, that's where we're at, right? But obviously, that's if they're going to pay the same dollars for each student, then that's great. What I heard there, though, is that that's really going to get close because it said wherever, that'd be the same dollars no matter where the kids went to school. Well, that's, if you're talking about public schools, okay, great. Then you're going to spend the same dollars and whether your kid goes to Roane County schools, Blount County schools, Maryville City schools, Knox County schools. But with this governor, who I like, by the way, and this General Assembly, I like a lot of them, not necessarily all of them, there's going to be some interesting dollars there because I think you'll see the voucher issue and how those dollars are following the kids to the private schools. But anyway, $750 million in recurring increase for K through 12 education funding formula. Since the new formula will not commence until fiscal year 24, which means it'll start July 1 of 23. These funds will be utilized in fiscal 23 for career technical education improvements in high schools and middle schools. That's $500 million, moving all 14 public schools out of floodplains. The governor talked about the flood that happened in Waverly, Tennessee, over in middle, close, more toward the west. That flood happened on a Saturday. And the governor talked about when he went in and saw the school and he saw all the backpacks and everything pushed up against the flood waters, and he pushed everything up against the door. And he said in his speech that had those kids been in school, we would have lost a lot of kids. A lot of kids would have died in the matter of about 10 minutes because of that flood in Waverly. So we got 14 public schools that are currently in floodplains. We're going to spend $200 million to get those 14 public schools out of floodplains or flood zones and give and spark grants of $50 million. Proposing a new law that will ensure parents know what materials are available to students in their libraries. I thought everybody knew what was in their libraries, but obviously we have the issue of the book being banned down in McMinn County, McMinn or Meigs, one of those down around Athens. Proposing new legislation to make computer science and coding available to every high school student in Tennessee. $2.5 million to expand the Future Workforce Initiative. Formalizing a partnership with Hillsdale College to expand their approach to civics education and K-12 education in Tennessee. $124.7 million to provide a well-deserved increase into the teacher salary pool. One other thing he said was that when they say that there's going to be a pay raise for teachers, there will be a pay raise for teachers. I don't know how he and the legislature are going to tie the strings to make that happen, but he pledged that would happen. $25.5 million in reoccurring funding to continue successful summer learning camps, something that's been going on really since the whole COVID situation. $16 million in reoccurring and $16 million in non-reoccurring to the Charter Schools Facility Fund to increase the number of high-quality charter schools. Again, charter schools, a little bit different. I mean, charter schools are schools that bring in, that help that local school districts accept the charter schools into their county. Higher education, $90 million to fully fund the outcomes-based formula, enabling a 0% tuition increase for public universities. $200 million for TCAT infrastructure investments to help double the skilled workforce by 2026. $72 million to complete the Oak Ridge Initiative Institute. It's a partnership with UT to invest in data science and technology, advanced materials, and outcomes-based applications. You can read the rest of those under higher education. All these bullet points are on brianhornback.com. Adding 100 highway patrol troopers, 20 TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation agents, and 25 Tennessee Bureau of Investigation forensic science personnel. So that's a total of 50 new personnel going to TBI. Half of the number that the Highway Patrol is getting. So the Highway Patrol is getting 100, TBI is getting 45. I'm sorry, not 50. And then going to be spending some money on a multi-agency law enforcement training academy. Also going to spend $28.4 million to fully fund the correctional officer salary changes. Then moving on into rural Tennessee, $82 million to reimburse public hospitals for uncompensated care. That really will help, I think, in some of the, especially for the rural areas that still have a hospital. A lot of the hospitals have moved out of the rural areas. Healthy Tennessee, going to have $25.5 million to provide adult dental benefits for 610 Tennesseans eligible for TennCare. Supporting families, going to expand the TennCare's Health Starts initiative to put an even greater emphasis on maternal health and holistic care for mothers and children. Infrastructure modernization, they're going to accelerate the Improve Act. Remember, the Improve Act was the increased gas tax and invest in transportation projects to ensure economic opportunity. $4 million enhanced litter cleanup on Tennessee highways. Put those inmates out there. That's my answer. Get those inmates out there picking up litter. It don't cost us nothing. The only thing that costs us is a couple of give them 2 days served for each day they pick up litter. It's my soapbox. Growing Tennessee, $103 million to fast track program, ensuring the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development has the tools to recruit and retain top companies to call Tennessee home. He talked a lot about, in his speech, he pointed out some folks that had moved here from California and some highway patrolmen who had come here from Iran, Kurdish. And, that's all well and good, but part of my Tennessee roots tells me that some of those people could just stay where they're at or go somewhere else. Let's see. Beautiful Tennessee, $40 million to invest in environmental cleanup, including national priority list sites, $28 million to eliminate the deferred maintenance backlog at state parks. Asset management, higher education, general government capital improvements over the next several years. I think in higher education, they're going to spend some money to really help Tennessee State University with some of their buildings that are pretty deplorable from what I understand. And that's kind of the highlights. But anyway, there was a lot of the legislators gave him a lot of applause. His speech was interrupted several times by them applauding and giving him a standing ovation. I do believe that he properly recognized the First Lady and some of the work that she's been doing on helping to provide food, both for seniors and those that don't have much, especially kids. And so the First Lady's work has been really phenomenal. So that kind of gets us caught up on the governor's, Tennessee governor's State of the State address. Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, I saw on YouTube where he gave his State of the State tonight, but I don't live in Florida. But I might watch it sometime when I'm bored, maybe. But what's going on? This has been a pretty crazy month. I will say that, we're about 17 days now away from the filing deadline for the May 3rd primary. Larson J., the county commissioner for at-large seat 10, did not think that he had a Republican opponent. Christine Cruz had been planning to run, and then she's kind of backed out. I think she realized that, she could be more effective being a community activist than actually being a candidate. But Steve Weiner, a local judge, he had initially announced that he was running for judge, but he came in second when the county commission put a citizen representative on the Board of Health. He got beat out by one vote. It was a 6 vote for Miss Roma, who actually is the citizen representative on the Board of Health. And then Attorney Steve Weiner had gotten 5 votes on the final ballot. That was a meeting that went into the wee morning, early hours of a county commission meeting back last year. But Mr. Weiner has now announced that he's going to run for, he's going to challenge Larson J. in the Republican primary. So that will be interesting. I believe the Concord Farragut Republican Club had scheduled in January to have the 2 Republicans, Kim Frazier and her opponent, and Larson J. as their speakers in January, but we had inclement weather on the first we had forecasted inclement weather on the first Thursday of January. And so they had to postpone that meeting. And so they're going to have those 3 come speak this coming Thursday, the first Thursday of February. And they're also going to have the 3 candidates for chancellor. That would be the current chancellor, Clarence Eddie Pridemore, Dino Cole, and Richard Bud Armstrong. I would assume that they're going to go ahead and let Steve Weiner in as well, since the idea is to have all the people running in the Republican primary for seats 10 and 11. And Steve had not officially gotten in. BrianHornback.com is actually the entity that broke that news last week that Steve Weiner was going to run for that. I since have talked to Steve. What happened was I'd gotten a flyer from multiple people, not from Steve Weiner, and not from his campaign, because he had not actually started a campaign yet. But there's going to be an event at the Square Room, and so the flyer was encouraging people to come to that to help support Steve Weiner, a conservative, against Larson J. And so after I'd gotten that flyer from multiple people within the course of just a few minutes, probably an hour, last Wednesday, I went ahead and went with it on my website because I had multiple sources that confirmed it. I then talked to Steve Weiner on Thursday, and he indicated that, yes, he had originally thought about running for commission, but Christine Cruz was running. And he didn't really reconsider his decision until after he'd found out that Christine was not going to run. So he then decided to then run against Larson J. in the Republican primary. So what we do know about Steve Weiner is he's an attorney. We know that he ain't afraid to go to a 2-hour meeting because he wanted to be he was willing to serve as the citizen representative on the Board of Health, which was a meeting that lasted till about 2 o'clock in the morning. He stayed and went through the interview process, went through the election process, came in, as I said, he had 5 votes versus Miss Roma's 6 votes. So he's willing to do the job. He's capable of doing the job. And so there will be a Republican primary between Larson J. and Steve Weiner. Again, Kim Frazier, community activist in the Hardin Valley community. She has an opponent. So we'll have a good Republican race for those 2 at-large seats. The other races are kind of shaping up now. It looks like Tony Stansberry will likely be unopposed, which is good news. Tony's been a very good General Sessions judge. Judd Davis and Sharon Frankenberg in the Republican primary. Judd was appointed the General Sessions judge by County Commission to fill the remaining term for Judge Jeff Emery, General Sessions Judge Division 2. And so the only other contested judge race we have is the 3 candidates running for chancellor. That would be for the position that Eddie Pridemore beat the Democrat 8 years ago. So Eddie Pridemore, Dino Cole, and Richard Bud Armstrong. And then from there, the other interesting races that are shaping up is Sheriff Tom Spangler and former Sheriff Jimmy J.J. Jones is an interesting race. Mike Hammond and Charlie Susano and Eric Lutton, Mike Hammond is criminal court clerk. Charlie Susano is the circuit court clerk. Eric Lutton's the public defender. Sharm Allen is the district attorney. Sherry Witt is the county clerk. Nick McBride is the register of deeds. Ed Schaus, our trustee's not running, but a 16-year employee of that department, and also former or current vice chairman of the county commission and county commission at-large seat 11, Justin Biggs. He's not running for commission again. He's running for trustee. All of those appear to be unopposed at this point. And so I think they're all doing a good job. Obviously, there's some issues going on with the sheriff's department. Morale's at an all-time low, and just a difference of opinion on how to run that department. So that will all be vetted out at some point. School board's going to be real interesting. Those races are now becoming partisan again. We haven't seen partisan races since about 92, 94, 96, somewhere in that neighborhood. You know, some of those races are in the they're staggered now, just like the commission is now staggered. The school board's always been staggered. So you got 4 races up this year. You got 3 of them that are not running for re-election. In the 1st district, Ebony Satterfield's not running again. In the 7th district, Patty Bounds is not running again. You got 2 individuals running in the 7th right now. In the 1st, you've got a Democrat, an independent, a couple of independents maybe, and a Democrat in the 1st. No Republican that I know of in the 1st. In the 4th, you have a couple of Republicans. Will Edwards is already out and about. And then Scott Whaley's picked up a petition. Got a Democrat, Catherine Bike, in the 4th. Then in the 7th, you got Sherry Garrett and Steve Triplett in the 7th. And you have a independent, Dominique Oakley, who just turned in her petition today. In the 9th, you have Christy Christie, who's a Republican, who's the current school board chair. And you have a gentleman who's got a petition out there against her on the Republican side. You have a Democrat, and I think you might have an independent, I'm not sure. And then the other commission races that you have out there is in the 3rd, which is a seat that Randy Smith is term limited on. Gina Oster's unopposed in the Republican primary. And then you have one in the 7th with attorney Rhonda Lee versus Chuck Severance in the 7th so far. So it's shaping up to be an interesting 2022. And we'll see how it goes. So I think that's going to just about conclude it. Information was fast and furious. Again, go to brianhornback.com. Check out the one pager that kind of gives you the highlights, the charts about the governor's proposed budget for fiscal year 23, and also some of those bullet points that I went over about where some of the new stuff's going to come from. Again, it's the Brian Hornback 30. And we're going to be here just a little less than 30, but I promise to never go over 30. So that is my commitment to you going forward. This is the 58th episode of the Brian Hornback 30, and I promise you will never go over 30. So all the good sitcoms were 30 minutes or less. Actually, that was with commercials. WKRP in Cincinnati, Dr. Johnny Fever died of complications from a colon surgery this weekend. That's very sad. But some of the greatest shows that I grew up watching, and even some of the greatest shows today, are all within 30 minutes. So I think if you'll commit to stay with me no more than 30 minutes, then I promise to give you great information, good information, and try not to let you down. So again, it's the Brian Hornback 30. Thank you for listening. Thank you for checking out brianhornback.com. Check me out on Twitter, mega_bullhorn. Or you can also check me out on Twitter at Brian Hornback. On Facebook, you can find me at brianhornback.com. Spell that out, DOTCOM, brianhornback.com, DOTCOM. Same on Instagram, Brian Hornback, spell it out, DOTCOM. And you can find me on a lot of different socials. So again, if you're wherever you're listening to this or watching this, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like, give us a subscribe, share it. If you're on podcast streams and you can give us and you can subscribe, fantastic. If you can give us a like, if you can give us a review, fantastic. But again, Brian Hornback 30 coming to you, and we'll be back again real soon. Y'all have a great one.